Hey, everybody. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes once we've given everybody a little bit of a chance to get on from their previous meetings. All right, everybody. Thanks for being patient. We've given a couple of minutes for everybody to get on, and we're looking pretty full. So this is great. We're going to get going. Let's jump right into it, Dave. Let's do today's agenda. We're going to do intros and then go into a high-level overview. We're going to talk about a couple of new enhancements that we have coming up here. Our webinars, we've kind of shifted them now to be more of a 30-minute thing to give people updates and so on and so forth. So let's get started with introductions. I'm John Marcato. I am the CTO and co-founder of Bacon Unlimited. And joining me today is David. He is our lead engineer. He's amazing. So Dave Adekoya is joining us, and he's going to flip the slide here in a second so that you can see what we look like. Does not seem to be flipping yet, Dave.
Ooh, yeah, sorry about that. Let's try that. How about that? Sorry, it was paused.
There we go. All right, so now you know who we are, and we're just going to jump right through house cleaning real quick, and then get kind of into it fast here. So if you are using the GoToWebinar for the first time, you may not have seen the questions and the polls. We're going to do a couple quick polls, real easy. Thanks for participating and just throwing your answers in there. Questions you can throw right into the chat, and we'll try to answer them throughout. And then at the end, we have a survey, which you're definitely going to want to fill out. One, because you're a super helpful person and you want to help us, and we appreciate that. But also because we are doing a raffle, and someone after this call is going to win a Meta Quest 3, which are super fun if you've never used one before, and you can do lots of cool things with it. So definitely stick around for that, and you'll be entered, and Lane will be following up and letting everybody know who won after the webinar. So thanks for doing that. In addition, if you do want to learn more about Bacon and want to get kind of like more of a standard walkthrough of the product, you can go on our Bacon Bits, which is our YouTube channel. There's tons of videos on there, I think 120 or so. And there's also past webinars and things like that. So you can really get a sense for the software. You can also sign up to do a demo with us, and we can do a direct demo with you, and you can get all your questions answered. So that's sort of long and short of that. And with that, I think, Dave, we're ready to do polls. So Lane, if you wouldn't mind, fire off our first poll. All right. What are your biggest pain points with your current vulnerability remediation? Tools, complexity, incomplete solution, time consuming, missing cross-platform fixes. Not a lot of cross-platformers today, but lots on the time-consuming. That's what we hear all the time. And
I'm saying for some, it's like all the above, right?
yeah. Oh, we got somebody, maybe just because they felt bad for it, they did some cross-platform fixes, but I wasn't getting too much love. In a second here, this will expire. We've only got 83% of the people who voted. Now we got everybody. And essentially, yeah, you can see there, time consuming seems to be the biggest issue, but also complexity and incomplete solutions. We're seeing that a lot. A lot of people say vulnerability management. What they really mean is they tell you about some of your vulnerabilities. That's not the most help in the world. So with Bacon, we'll talk a little bit about what our approach is and what our end goals are and what we've achieved so far. Now we're going to do a second poll, and then we'll jump into that. What are the biggest impediments to updating endpoints in your environment? Yep, employee compliance, getting people to do their reboots, things like that. Closing apps. Yeah, it's always a big one. We're going to be talking about that today. Lack of endpoint visibility, lack of endpoint control, not enough time, and/or resources and company policies. Huge advantage here on employee compliance being one of the big problems. We've got 71% of votes in. I think that's going to be the winner there.
I think we've all been there, so it rings true. It's kind of like selecting Windows and what platform you're using.
We don't have enough time and resources, and employees don't help. Well, we're gonna help get you over that hump now, because they're gonna have to help. So there you go.
Just reboot once a year.
Yeah, just reboot once a year. It's no big deal. We see it, Dave, I think too, which is interesting about that particular subject, like even apps like Zoom, right, which update all the time because they're constantly being attacked and vulnerabilities being exposed. And if you upgrade it, it destroys the experience for the person on Zoom. So you have to be really careful about upgrading it, and that's miserable. So how about just put it in their hands, right? So we're going to talk about that. And this is really helpful. I think this is kind of what I expected. I think more so on the employee compliance than anticipated. So very, very helpful information. Thank you all for filling that out. So let's move ahead here and start talking a little bit about why Bacon and what it kind of does. So this is sort of Bacon in a nutshell. Bacon is an endpoint management tool. It's very complete. It's cross-platform. But the big thing that we've noticed is a big time-consuming problem for all IT shops these days is the vulnerability remediation. A lot of tools telling you about vulnerabilities. For those who are very familiar with this area of IT, you know that there are a few companies, Tenable being the most well-known, that are great at scanning for and finding vulnerabilities on all of your systems. We personally use the Tenable SC product, which is just the on-prem sort of full product that they have. And it's great. We've got agents on all of our endpoints, and it gives us a huge amount of data. Now, Bacon can find out about vulnerabilities without it, but we think that you can do better if you're also using Tenable. It gives you that sort of extra 10%, which can be maybe the most important 10%. So we do collect information from the NIST National Vulnerabilities Database, and we do collect information from CISA, which I used to think was called CISA, but I was corrected by them, so it's CISA. And CISA has a currently exploited list of vulnerabilities, or the KEV, the known exploited vulnerabilities, and that's the really, really scary one. So we're tracking both those things in Bacon, even if you don't have Tenable, and that's really helpful. But with Tenable, you will get a little bit extra sort of deeper scans, and that can be great, and you can use all of that information together in Bacon. So Bacon has become this great system for doing vulnerability remediation. It is a new feature, and we are still making tweaks to it, but we've got about 93 to 95% of the vulnerabilities that it's finding, we already have fixes for. So that means you can just go in to the remediation section and just, say upgrade if it's a Firefox vulnerability, or install all the related operating system patches on Mac, Windows, and Linux. And then you can also do configuration changes, which, because Bacon is built with Salt under the hood, for those who don't know Salt, look it up. It's the single best configuration management sort of open source library that exists out there. We have that fully incorporated into Bacon, and that allows us to do something most other platforms can't do, which is literally control every single setting on every single machine. So that could be registry settings on Windows, or group policies, all the configs that you see on Mac and on Linux. And it really makes it possible that, if your vulnerability is not based on an upgrade of a piece of software or of an operating system, you could still fix it. And that's a really important thing to be able to do. So Bacon's getting a lot of attention around this right now, and our goal is to make it the ultimate highest speed method for resolving vulnerabilities, all while still doing all of the key things in endpoint management that we already do, and continuing to enhance those, which we're going to be talking about a little today. So we are real-time everything. That's very important. If you want to fix vulnerabilities, you need to know whether or not you really have one. You need to know whether or not you've already done your patches, whether or not you really have that version of software, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I will say is if you're doing Tenable scans and you're doing those daily or something like that, or weekly, there could be some delay in that information, but that's outside of our hands. That's up to you. But nonetheless, we'll be able to track all of that and with a complete history. Visibility and monitoring, we have that for everything that's important in there. And we also have remote control, so you can do the one-to-one surgery on machines when you patch 1,000 machines and one just doesn't work. Well, there could be something wrong with the machine. It could be corrupt. It could have communication problems. It can be a lot of things. So you want to be able to just very quickly go get on that machine in a very secure way. And Bacon enables all of these capabilities in one platform. So that's kind of the gist of what Bacon does. And again, if you want to see deeper demos on this, you can check out our YouTube channel or get on a demo with us. We're very happy to have those meetings and talk about the product and hear your ideas. But I think that the thing we wanted to kind of do today, so that we have fresh content on these webinars, is talk a little bit about a couple of key things that are coming out. One sort of is coming out right now, which is called the user service, and the other, which is coming out in about a month and a half, which is our advanced schedules and job chaining capabilities, which are really, really exciting for doing things like patch approvals. We're going to be showing that just a little bit of the architecture of that today, and what that's talking about, what that's going to offer. So Dave, I think with that, that's enough of a kind of Bacon overview. Do you want to give a quick show of the user service to give people a little bit of a sense of what it does?
Yeah, sure thing. So let me go ahead and switch over to our Bacon demo. So what we are looking at here is our vulnerabilities feature. So as John said, we're able to both detect any kind of vulnerabilities as well as remedy those issues. And so here I've gone into our Remediator. That's where we go to actually fix the stuff. And so as John was saying, there's a couple of ways we can fix the issue. We can do patches, we can do stuff with configurations. And this will be things like changing registry keys, local GPOs, config files, all that kind of good stuff. Packages would update your application. So think like he was talking about Zoom, Chrome, Firefox, all the goodies. And then actions is more of like a manual thing where you use your context of knowing your environment to figure out which endpoints are vulnerable to certain kinds of configurations versus others. Things like if you can access network share, but it's a file server, job done. We've done our thing. But if it's like a key web server, maybe you don't want to have it open. So let's go back to patches and we're going to look. Yeah.
If I could jump in there, if you wouldn't mind going back to actions, this is actually a good thing for people to know, which is if you use Tenable today, you'll see that these no severity kind of items, we left them in here so that people could see them informationally, but most of them are what I would call like recommendations to look at, right? But they're not things that you necessarily, it's not something that needs to be quote unquote fixed. And that's why we leave it in kind of this manual actions bucket. But I think the first time I looked at this, I was like, oh no, we're not fixing this really important thing. And it's like, oh wait, there's fix. Maybe I want to have groups with admins in it. It's like just, and you can hide all of those in Tenable so that they don't show up in Bacon by sort of saying like, we don't want to get notified on this. So it is possible to get rid of those. I just want to make sure people don't think we left all that stuff undone. Anything that needs to be fixed or should be fixed, we do make an actionable, quick and easy fix for it. So anyways, please continue.
Yeah, no worries. Go. Alrighty, so we're gonna go back to patches and we're gonna look at our new deadlines feature. This will allow us to push things out and then prompt the user for action. So again, solving that #1 in our polls of employee compliance. So as an example, let's look at this Windows update. So what we're looking at here are all of the different ways that we've mapped CVEs or tenable plugins to different patches available for the machine. So I have a couple Linux ones, so that's why we're seeing applications in here, but I'm going to stick to this Windows update one. So what you can do here is in response to your CVEs and plugins, you can go to Actions and Install. And I see a lot of really familiar names in chat, so you're going to know what this screen's like, but let's cover it really quick. So up top here, we have the patch I selected. Only one of my endpoints needs the patch, and that's the endpoint we're listing down here, right? If I had 4 endpoints, I would see then 4 endpoints. And so we can see here it does require reboot, and that's kind of how we're going to use our new feature. So here you would select your endpoint, and then down here, again, for those of you who are familiar with this page, you'll see something new, schedule with deadline. What this allows you to do is define a certain time in which the machine is going to install that patch and reboot for you. That's just going to do it because we've hit the end of it. So as an example, we could choose like the end of the month, right? We can choose a time. I would just probably pick like midnight or something close approximation, and then install. What this will do is send the job to the machine, and then from that point, the user is going to get prompted to take action. Now on the user side, if I switch over to my VM here, this is what they're going to see. So as an example, I pushed just this .NET Framework patch to my Windows 11 VM. And so you're going to see different prompts to say, hey, actions required. And it's going to tell you like, hey, make sure that you are prepared. It's going to force a reboot, all this kind of good stuff. As a user, I'm now able to have a little bit more control. And so I can either do it right now, I can have it prompt me again in an hour, remind me tomorrow, or I can actually schedule for a certain date and time that works for me and then submit. So what will happen then is if they ignore this, it's going to reopen. Again, they can also just choose remind me in an hour, it'll reopen. So there's no really running from it. If I get to the very end of the deadline, then it's going to install and reboot for me. So this allows the users to kind of get their stuff done, keep their same machine state, and then when they're ready, they can reboot and install the patch. So that's kind of the main thing with this feature here is I think it'll cause a lot of let's say less headaches on the admin world of pinging people, begging them to reboot, because we've given them a pretty good time frame. They know that the action's required by a certain time frame you can see here, and then they can choose the best time in order to reboot. Kind of rounding up that feature, John, anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I just think it's really important for people to be able to, as IT admins and managers, to be able to commit to management when certain things are going to be handled. And so the idea that you can give the end user every opportunity to make this a pleasant experience for them that avoids interrupting them during the day is fantastic. But I think it's just as important that we can set some hard rules in here. And if they don't do it by the deadline, it's going to happen. If their computer's off that whole day and then they are off the network and then they come back online, they're past that deadline. They didn't, sort of comply, and it's just going to happen. And so that way, management knows that it's either done or the machine is completely off. And then if it comes back online, this is the first thing that's going to happen. So there's really no way to avoid doing this, and yet there won't be a good reason to complain, because you would have been given every opportunity as an end user to have this be the best possible experience. But companies need to get this stuff done these days, right? The compliance requirements are too high, and chasing people around is what takes a lot of the time. So this helps get rid of that. And you'll see the Bacon logo up there on the left. You can actually put in your own logo so that people recognize that it's coming from the company's IT department and so on and so forth. So some really, really good stuff going on there, and we're really glad that we added this. So with that, Dave, I think since we want to give people some minutes at the end to fill out the survey, why don't we move on to the schedules feature? And if you wouldn't mind bringing up the server with the preview alpha version of 5.2, we'll give a little bit of a picture of what this is. So I'll just talk a little bit about what it solves and why this is better than what we do today. So a little sort of pro tip is that we can actually sort of do this already, but the problem is the way we can do this in Bacon today using our profiles feature is a little high tech. It requires some advanced YAML files and some consulting from us, usually, if you're not a YAML expert, to write these things in, and that can be a little kludgy to manage. So For some people who needed some more advanced automation in how they patched, we were able to do that for them. But we realized it'd be a lot nicer if they could just point and click and have it be a simple experience. So we've kind of got two big features in one. The first one, actually three, if I'm being honest. The first is that you can set schedules and recurring schedules for jobs. So you could say every day at 1 o'clock, as you can see on that yellow one, or every Tuesday at 4, or once a month, on Thursday at 10:45, whatever you like. And you can assign jobs to that. And the schedules are really, really easy to use. They're just like using kind of like an Outlook calendar. And the idea there is that you would be able to do recurring things, of which there's probably many examples, but one of the most common, the one that sort of spurred this was being able to do patches and being able to approve them ahead of time, either as automatically based on criteria or manually approve them. And then based on certain schedules for certain groups of machines, if you know Microsoft's updating schedule, they call these rings. You could set up different rings and sort of say, these machines are going to be on this schedule and these other machines are going to be on these other schedules. And you can do that based on dynamic groupings and all kinds of really flexible things that make automation awesome and easy to use. So these schedules allow this recurrence, but the only way it works is that if you also have patch approvals in the case of the example I gave. So we've added that too. And so Dave, you wouldn't mind just going to patching, and you can see now in 5.2 there's this approvals window. And this means that you can take any category on any operating system type and you could pre-approve it. And the other thing you can do is say, if you want to do an auto approve, Dave, go ahead and click on that. You'll get this option. So you can say, as long as it's in this category and it's been out for X amount of days, and that's really important because maybe you don't want everything getting installed on Patch Tuesday when Microsoft is basically beta testing on all of us. So you could set it to 7 days or 5 days after. And now you know that your first round of updates for all the automatic stuff that you're allowing that's critical and security updates isn't going to happen 4, 3, or 5 days after. And if that all goes well, then you allow the second schedule, which is maybe a week after that, to happen to additional systems. And then maybe your most critical systems even go a few days after that. So you can do as many of these schedules as you want and really set that up in the way you want. So with that, the last thing I didn't mention, if we want to just go back to those schedules for 1 second, is that we also have a third capability in here called job chaining. And that means that in those schedules, you can make jobs that are dependent on each other to do some advanced capabilities that we see in some of our enterprise customers. So a really good example would be if you are running a patch job and maybe you need to stop a specific service first, or make sure that run a little script that's going to close all Office apps, which is a really common one. You'll be able to chain that so that happens right before the job goes off, the patching job. And then after the patching job, you can have it ensure that a certain service is on, or restart a service, or all kinds of different choices that you can make. But all the different kinds of jobs in Bacon, like patching, scripting, installing software, installing complicated multi-file software, delivering files, all of these kinds of things are at your disposal to be chained together and to have different kinds of dependencies. So like, if you do this and it works, then move on. Otherwise, cancel the job entirely. Like, all of those things are possible. So those are kind of the new things that we have that we're working on very aggressively right now to get out in October. The other thing that we're just really focused on, as I mentioned, is continuing to tweak and tune everything in our third-party patching and OS patching and configuration changes in regards to vulnerability management, and just creating all those fixes for you so that they're just there waiting for you for an easy response when you're ready. And then it's got all the full reporting in there. Another exciting thing we'll be doing soon, just a quick side note, is starting to do some Power BI show and tell using the API from Bacon to basically show how you can get
That'll be
really
good.
cool time series information. Yeah, so you can get new kinds of historicals. We do have a bunch of that built in, but people have asked for some unique things, and we thought maybe we'd build that into the platform, and now we're sort of realizing that things like Power BI and Tableau have gotten so advanced that you can just use it with the API, and so we want to create sort of a roadmap and template where you could just take what we know and pop it in a really easy way. So we'll be talking about that stuff in the future as well. So those are just some tidbits for today's webinar. We really appreciate everyone coming. Dave, did you have any last comments before we let everybody go and do the survey?
Nope, nothing here.
Okay, I do see that there was one question that came in. We'll be able to brand this window. Oh, someone asked the question that I think I answered in there. Yes, you can brand the window in this sort of first version. So in 5.1, which will have the full user service capabilities and should be out within a month here, you will be able to brand that window. And then we're going to talk about some additional customizations to that in the future. But in this very first version, you will be able to do that. So thanks for asking that. And there is not a free version of Bacon. This is an incredibly high value piece of software that's constantly being worked on by engineers. And you're getting essentially people always building vulnerability fixes for you and other things. So we didn't feel that this particular piece of software was a good fit for sort of a free tier, but great question. Thanks everybody for joining today. Go win yourself an Oculus. Thanks for filling out the survey, and we'll talk to you all soon.